A man in a gray suit crossed a marble hotel lobby like he'd been in every room in the building before and found them all adequately familiar. He stopped 2 feet from my husband. Waited for him to finish his phone call. Then he said 5 words that changed the temperature of the entire room. "Good evening, Your Grace." "Not sir." "Not Mr. Hale." "Your Grace." My mother's hand slipped from her clutch. For 2 years, my family had called my husband a nobody. They'd given him the blank place card. The job at the kitchen for ice. The Facebook post calling me dead to them. They had no idea who they'd actually disowned. Let me back up. My mother said I was dead to her at 9:14 in the morning. I know the exact time because the clock above the stone archway outside St. Bartholomew's had just finished its quarter-hour chime, and the sound was still moving through the cold air when she said it. Navy dress. Hands folded the way they folded when she prepared what she was going to say and was delivering it, not speaking it. My aunt held her purse. My younger brother stared at the floor like he was trying to find a way into it. Marcus stood beside me. He didn't move. He didn't reach for my hand or step forward or change his expression in any way that suggested the words had landed on him as anything other than information he was filing away, neat, unhurried, the way he filed everything. My mother looked at me only. She'd stopped looking at Marcus directly about 8 months earlier, around the 3rd family dinner, as though sustained eye contact might count as a form of acknowledgement she decided not to extend. Dead to her. Clean and final, the way she liked things once she'd made up her mind. Then Marcus touched the small of my back once, lightly, and we walked into the church. The first time my family decided who Marcus was, he was passing the rolls at Thanksgiving. My father went around the table the way he always did, asking every man present what they were working on. Not a question. An audit. My brother-in-law's portfolio. My cousin's graduate program. My sister's boyfriend's firm. When he reached Marcus, he paused 1 second too long and said, "Marcus, we need more ice," and turned back to my brother-in-law before Marcus had finished standing. Marcus went and got the ice. Came back. Said nothing. Passed the rolls. I watched my father not notice Marcus had refilled 3 water glasses on his way back from the kitchen. I watched my mother clock his 8-year-old car through the window, the cracked leather visible from the porch. I watched my aunt learn everyone's graduate program and somehow hear the name of Marcus's company twice across the evening and still not retain it by dessert. He noticed. Not in anything he said, in the way he folded his napkin before answering a question and unfolded it after, like the question hadn't quite required the full use of his hands. I told myself they needed time. They didn't need time. They'd already decided. By my sister's engagement dinner in February, the family's opinion of Marcus had become policy. Every place card had a name and, beneath it, a title, a firm, a school, a designation. My mother's careful handwriting, under every name at the table. Marcus's card had his name and a blank line underneath. Not an omission. A decision. The blank was too clean to be accidental. He picked up the card, looked at the blank line for a moment, set it face down, and asked my sister how she and her fiancé had met. He listened to the whole answer with more focus than anyone else at that table was giving anything. I turned my own card over later. Beneath my name, my mother had written 1 word. Daughter. Like the rest of me had already been edited out in advance. I want to be fast about this, because the version my family told themselves was wrong in almost every detail. $847 a month for a 2-bedroom on Clement Street. Marcus fixed the stuck window with a butter knife and weather tape. Planted basil in a chipped blue mug on the sill. A $60 dining table with 1 short leg. He folded a takeout menu under it so the plates wouldn't rattle. My mother saw that table once, during an unannounced visit, and later told my aunt I was eating off somebody else's leftovers. She saw secondhand. She didn't see that every bill in that apartment was paid before its due date. She didn't see the legal pad in the kitchen drawer, where Marcus wrote our budget in neat block letters every month, not because we were struggling, but because he believed money should be told where to go before it decided for you. My family measured worth by what could be parked in a driveway. Marcus paid attention to different things. Grout resealed before mold took hold. Tires rotated before the tread went thin. Thank you notes mailed the same week a favor was done. There was one thing I knew about Marcus that I never said out loud to my family. I'd walked into a hallway outside a hearing room one morning, early, before he knew I was there, and watched 3 attorneys in good suits lower their voices when he turned the corner. Not flattering him. Adjusting, the way a room adjusts its posture when the temperature changes and everyone feels it before anyone names it. A woman stepped aside without being asked. A bailiff nodded before Marcus said a word. I stood there with a paper cup of bad coffee and understood that the picture my family had built over 2 years of careful dismissal wasn't wrong in small ways. It was wrong the way a map is wrong when it leaves out the mountain. I didn't tell them. I planted that knowledge somewhere quiet and waited, without knowing exactly what I was waiting for. The Facebook post arrived on a Tuesday at 8:03 p.m. My mother used our old engagement photo and wrote that her daughter had made a selfish choice and was no longer part of the family. Clean grammar. No visible anger. Tagged my father, both sisters, and the family business page. My father's account liked it at 7:58, before it even went public. They'd planned this. They'd made me into an announcement. By 8:30, 47 people had seen my name attached to a story I hadn't been asked to help write. Marcus came in, read the screen completely, the way he read everything, to the end. Then he said, "Are you hungry? I can make something." I thought about the bailiff nodding in that hallway. I thought, not yet. He proposed on a Thursday at the kitchen table, no restaurant, no speech, just a ring slid across the table during dinner. My family came to the wedding because not coming would have been a statement too visible even for them. 3rd row, dressed correctly, performing the occasion with the discipline of people who decided to object in private and comply in public. Until my mother didn't. 9:14, the chime finished. She said what she said. Marcus didn't move, didn't give them the reaction they'd come to collect. We walked into the church and got married, and by noon we were eating lunch with the 30 people who'd been there from the start. Nobody mentioned the archway. Over the next year, the family found out, slowly, separately, without ever connecting it back to us, what it costs to lose access to a person like Marcus without knowing it. My uncle's zoning permit sat on a desk for 6 weeks while a man who'd worked alongside Marcus for 11 years sat 1 floor away, never called, because nobody knew to ask. My brother's landlord sent notices written to trap him, and a phone call that would have fixed it in 15 minutes was never made, because the only person who'd have known exactly which 4 words to change wasn't part of the family anymore. And my mother, who'd spent 3 years angling for a seat on the Whitmore Foundation's charity board, was seated by the catering doors at their October luncheon. She never learned that the woman who built the board slate each spring had asked Marcus, months earlier, whether he knew anyone from our family worth considering, and Marcus had said, pleasantly, that he was sure they were very well intentioned. He didn't say it to punish anyone. He answered an honest question honestly. That was always the thing about him. None of them connected any of it. That's what made it worse. They didn't lose access to Marcus loudly. It just got quieter, in every direction, one closed door at a time. He wore the same watch every day. Black leather band, resoled once at the buckle, scratched near the clasp. Not expensive in any way my family understood. I asked him once why he never replaced it. My father gave it to me when I passed the bar, he said. It keeps good time. That was all. He didn't explain further. He never explained himself to rooms that hadn't earned it. My family saw a scratched strap and decided what it meant. They never thought to ask. The fundraiser was 18 months after the wedding, at the Whitmore Hotel. My cousin's literacy charity. Marcus stepped aside near the door to take a call. I went ahead to check us in. My mother was at the far end of the registration table, working the room, hadn't seen me yet. The man in the gray suit crossed the lobby, stopped, waited for the call to end. Good evening, Your Grace. The acoustics of Marble Carry. My mother's hand slipped from her clutch, she caught it, but the motion was involuntary. My aunt's head tilted, the gesture of someone deciding whether they'd heard correctly. Marcus looked at the man for a moment. Then, quietly, "Please don't." 2 words. The request of a man who'd spent considerable effort keeping a particular door closed, asking, with complete courtesy, for it to stay that way. Here's what that title meant, and what my family never bothered to find out. Marcus's family held an old hereditary title back in his father's home country, the kind of thing that comes with land, history, and a level of standing my family would have killed to be photographed near. He'd walked away from almost all of it in his 20s, kept his head down, built an ordinary American life on purpose, and never once mentioned it, not out of shame, but because he didn't want to be loved for it. He wanted to be loved for the legal pad in the kitchen drawer and the basil on the windowsill. The man nodded, accepting the boundary, and shook his hand. They spoke briefly. He moved back into the room. Marcus crossed to me, straightened my badge, asked if I'd eaten. He never looked toward my mother. He didn't need to. My cousin's board chair, the woman who'd built the slate every spring, the one my mother had introduced herself to 3 times without being remembered, crossed the room a few minutes later and shook Marcus's hand like she'd been hoping to meet him for some time. She knew exactly who he was. My mother had spent 3 years trying to learn that woman's name. We drove home at 10:30. Marcus didn't mention the lobby once. He talked about how good the food was, and how impressive our cousin's work was, and a good point the speaker had made about early intervention. I sat there thinking about every Thanksgiving where he'd been sent for ice. The blank place card. The Facebook post and 47 people and my father's like at 7:58. The hallway outside the hearing room. Your Grace hanging in marble air and my mother's hand slipping from her clutch. The door they closed was never mine. I'd been standing in a different house the whole time, one with basil and a chipped blue mug and a takeout menu folded under a table leg and a legal pad in a kitchen drawer, and a man who paid everything before it was due. It was never a mistake. We got upstairs. He sat at the kitchen table and opened the legal pad and wrote the date in the top right corner in his neat block hand. I trimmed the basil, which had grown past the rim of the mug. I felt nothing that resembled triumph. What I felt was quieter than that, the settledness of someone who chose correctly when the choice was hard, and had been living inside that choice long enough to know it was right. The door they closed was never mine. It was always theirs. And on a Thursday evening in a marble lobby, in front of every name they'd spent years trying to collect, they finally understood the difference, with no way to take it back, and no door left to close.